Welcome to the Learner Experience Evolution, a podcast for corporate learning leaders, featuring interviews with change enthusiasts at Alencom and in the larger corporate L&D community.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of our podcast. I am thrilled, beyond thrilled, to have Dana Durham here joining me. She is a executive at Delta. She will share more about that. As usual, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about innovation in the L&D space. We're going to explore some personal stories and, of course, talk about the things that we are most interested these days. So with Dana, if you could introduce yourself, and we'll get this going.
Yes, so thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. Dana Durham here. I am a general manager with Delta Airlines, so specifically over airport customer service. We focus on frontline employees, so above wing and below wing. So everyone who you interact with at the airport, from your lobby and gate agents to your below wing agents, when you talk about the people who help push the planes out, or your baggage handlers. And so we train any and all of them. We have about 40,000 employees that we train on a regular basis.
Wow.
And so that's what my area covers today.
Fun. And as a 2 million mile Delta flyer, I am very happy that your training works, because it does, because I'm still flying Delta. So may not get to 3 million, but I will do my best. Okay, so let's get started. And I think, all of us have come to our jobs in many different ways. That's the beauty of L&D. And I would love to hear a bit more of your personal journey. What got you to where you are today? How did you kind of navigate your own career to get to be in charge of training 40,000 people?
Great question. So I think my journey is different and maybe similar to many of you. I started off in the IT world, right? And so information technology has always been my baby. I love it. And so really moved from programming and project management and kind of made my way into more innovation. And so while I've been in tons of consulting companies for years and years, I've kind of been in the IT industry for about 25 years, and then made my way over to Delta about 9 years ago. And so when I came over to Delta, I started working in the innovation and strategy space. And then, as you mentioned, I was almost a million miler when I came off the road. So I had traveled Monday through Friday for a long time, for almost 15 years. And so one of the things, and I flew Delta religiously. And so one of the things I always talked about was, how do I continue to create that customer experience? And how do we elevate that customer experience across the board? And so when the opportunity came available for me to work at Delta, it was a no-brainer. And so when I came in, I was running the innovation and strategy area and helping them to understand, how do we continue to push the envelope for our customers? And so innovation and strategy kind of led into helping to train our employees on different things in the IT space. And then I came over to airport customer service. And so in airport customer service, people think about what happens, just on the front line. But if you think about everything from safety to just basic skills, and then also what technologies are we utilizing in order to create that breadth and depth of knowledge. And so that's kind of where I kind of got into the learning space. It feels like I've always been in the learning space, but really started to say, we're trying to take those technologies and bring about a new experience, especially when you think about not just our customer base, but our new employee base, right? And so prior to COVID, Delta's employee base was very senior, right? We talked 40 years and plus. And so that changed a little bit after COVID happened. And so now we have a newer generation of employees. Right? And we start talking about the generations where, they're on their phones all the time. They want quick and easy training. They want something that's not 30 minutes anymore. They're looking for more 5 minutes or less. And so the attention span has definitely changed, and what their need is for training has changed. And so me moving into this space has helped us to look at what are the different things that we can do differently in order to make sure that we appeal to our newer generation and our newer learners, but also how do we make sure that we're giving them just enough information to make them successful, but
Yeah.
also providing them that more hands-on experience. And so that's kind of my journey, and we continue to evolve, and the partnerships that we have with great companies like you all is it helps us to be able to stay on that cutting edge of technology.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into the next question, because I like what you said about the changing learner population. Now, the objectives don't change. You want to serve your customers to the best. You want everybody to be safe. You want your employees to be safe, your customers to be safe. Again, I fly in the planes. I want us all to be safe. But the audience changes. And so how do you innovate? When we look at the concept of innovation, I mentioned this a lot in this podcast. We are kind of limited in L&D or in change, because we're reacting to what our company wants. Share a bit about how you and your team have been able to drive change and innovation in circumstances where sometimes you have to make compromises and work within the platforms you're given.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things I try to start off with all the time is around staying connected to my counterparts across Fortune 500 companies, right? We always tap into other organizations to see what they're doing, how their people are handling change, and what are some of the things that they're doing differently. That helps us to kind of set the level set. Delta, we try to stay on the cutting edge, but a little bit behind the cusp of things. And it helps us to be able to be a little bit more vigilant around what others are doing and what's really working. From an L&D perspective, we right now, AI is definitely on the cutting edge, and everyone's moving towards that. We're a little bit behind the 8 ball when it comes to the utilization of that. But we definitely want to make sure not only are we partnering across lines with other industries, but we're listening to our learners more. And so we formulate a lot of focus groups. We hear from them. What did you like about our current training? What are things that we can do differently? And then what are some of the ways for us to be able to innovate more efficiently and become more efficient? And so those are things that we really focus on from an overall technology perspective. I was going to say, in addition to that, when we start talking about some of the technologies that we're using, one of the ones that we're recently starting to change, and you all helped us with this, is our Belowing Ramp Up program, our onboarding program. It's our onboarding initiative. Today, our existing ramp program is about 6 weeks of training. And you start thinking about literally someone sitting in the classroom for 6 weeks and someone talking at them. And that's what we've been doing for 40 years. Our training has not changed in 40 years. And so we said, we have to improve this, right? Because what we were hearing from our learners was like, I'm literally drinking out of a fire hose, right? I've never, been up to a plane and in person with an aircraft ever, besides just getting on one. And so being in such a dangerous environment is something that we want to take great care of, and then making sure that people feel safe when they go out there. And so what we've done, we partnered across with you guys, looking at just industry standards and ways that we can improve learning, is really starting to listen to our frontline. And they said, hey, we need more hands-on. We need to be able to, before we get out into the operation, how do you get us more hands-on experience? And also, someone talking at me for 6 weeks is not helping me either. And so we've incorporated more of a flipped classroom approach, where you have you have some interaction from an e-learning perspective, and you're going in and you're taking courses and doing games and things of that nature, simulations. And then you have the instructor-led piece as well, where they're really starting to explain the concepts that you've already learned in more detail. And then we're bringing in things from the operation. So if they're talking about bag tags, we're bringing that in and we're walking through. This is, a beginning a beginning orientation to a destination, and what that looks like. How do you properly handle bags? What happens when you go out into the operation and you're seeing this big aircraft, right? How do you stay safe? And so we go through all of the safety tips and things of that nature as well. And then before we take them out into the operation, we're using things like VR technology, where we're putting them in the operation, it seems like, from a VR perspective, where they can kind of look around and see how things are fast moving, right? Not just the planes out there, but you have catering trucks, you have fuel trucks, you have all of these things around you. And so around staying vigilant, what are you going to see? How are you going to feel? And so working through VR in those instances, but we also have driving simulations. So we put them in kind of a driving simulator where they are maneuvering around tugs. If they're driving a baggage truck, they have to maneuver in and out of cones and things like that. So it provides them more of a hands-on experience without putting them in harm's way right away. So those are some of the things that we're doing with our onboarding program. And we have quite a few more that are coming down the pipe that we're going to continue to do those things as well.
I think what fascinates me is, we're going to talk about AI in a minute, is that at the end of the day, for a learner, it's not about AI or a classroom. It's about that hands-on experience. And I think this is where maybe even a cautionary tale that we can't sacrifice the need of an employee to really experience before he's kind of held accountable, but learn through doing. And we've said, as a company that does hundreds of thousands of hours of e-learning over our past 10 years and thousands a year, is that you can't let that take over the experience. And I think having that insight, listening and benchmarking. We talk a lot about benchmarking. We formed a group at Alencom called Learning Leader Connect of all of our customers and others, just so they can share their stories with each other. We as a vendor don't have to be in the middle, and I think that's where you get a lot of knowledge. So let's switch a bit and talk a little bit about how you've been able to navigate the AI world when it comes to innovation and trying to change things within your practice.
So one of the things when you start talking about AI, Delta is, I say, behind the times from some companies. Some companies are, full-fledged, and they're really bringing those things in. I think we're starting to really dip our toe into the AI world just to start to understand. Because we're so heavily compliance, FAA-based, DOT regulations, there's a lot of red tape that's kind of wrapped into a lot of things that we're doing. And so we've recently brought in something that we call Nadia, which provides us the ability to do training more from a coaching perspective of having crucial conversations, helping you from a career perspective. That was our first step, right? So teaching from that perspective. We just implemented something which we call Role IQ. And so Role IQ allows our frontline team members to be able to interact with this AI platform, which provides them real world scenarios without them having to be put into the real world, right? And so this is more used for our above wing agents when it comes to communication. And so we are doing things such as, we call it gray sky days. So service interruptions are happening in the operation. All flights are canceled. You have a long line, and we've all seen this, a long line of customers that are waiting at the help counter, and they're irate, right? You have different situations. Some people, are missing a cruise, or someone, my child is graduating, or I'm going to a funeral. So there's tons of situations that can occur. And so with this Role IQ, what we're doing is creating these scenarios that our frontline team members are put in the situation, and we're trying to see how they respond. And so we are providing 3 different modules or modes. So the first one is to be able to listen, right? Listen to an ideal conversation between a customer and the team member. The next is practice, right? So they can go through, and we're providing them a script where they can either read off the script, or they can kind of role play back and forth, and they can do that as many times as they like. And then the last one is an assess mode. And so the assess mode is you're free-forming it, right? We feel like that you've practiced. Now we're going to have you go and have a conversation with this customer that has been, their flight has been interrupted. How do you handle that situation? And the AI system basically scores them, right? It'll say you passed or failed. You said these things incorrectly. You didn't show empathy. You didn't offer options. This was a diamond medallion member, and you didn't provide them options to get a window seat, or whatever those things are. And it provides them coaching, what they can do differently and how they can continue to improve. And so the goal of that AI system is to provide our agents more confidence when they get out into the operation to have those conversations. And then also it provides us a way to kind of gauge, right? What additional training do we need to push out there in order to provide
Yeah, excellent.
a better learning experience for them so they feel prepared.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating. And by the way, I want to tell you, Dana, from somebody who meets on a weekly basis with so many different learning leaders, you are not behind the time. I mean, what you're describing is a pretty matured implementation of learning simulation and personalization. Sorry to use some geekish words, but that is really where we see the quickest adoption. I mean, at Alencom, we've built a whole practice now around these simulation engines because really the evaluation becomes a key component of helping and identifying. And then once you start defining these as skills versus as roles, it's really important to be able to take that evaluation and tie it to the skills you want your frontline agents to have. I have no complaints. I've been a Diamond Medallion since they started the program, and I'm always treated right. So the training is working. Let's as we kind of we've talked about so many great things. Let's kind of bring it back to that personal side. You had your journey, which to me is fascinating through IT. We talked earlier about where you went to school, so you definitely came heavily prepared for a different type of job. But now look at where you're impacting 40,000 people. If you could go back and say, okay, when I first started this move, into learning, not knowing what I know now, what would you be telling yourself?
So one of the things I would have told my younger self is to listen to your learners, right? Tap into them. I think oftentimes we go in and we have all of these great ideas and we dive in head first, and we're trying to push all of these things out, and we're going based off what we want and what we feel like we need. But one of the things that I've noticed over probably the last 5 years is we get more from really going out and talking to our learners, understanding how they are in the moment. We've heard multiple times, sometimes from some of our frontline team members, it's like some, leaders are making decisions and they're sitting up here, right? They're not down in the operation with us. They don't understand the day to day. They don't understand all the things that we're going through. And so one of the things that we've challenged ourselves with over the last several years is go out into the operation. We do a lot of side by sides with them. If someone asks us for a training for something, we spend a day, sometimes even a week out there with them, just understanding and seeing the operation, seeing how it works and seeing where we can make those improvements. And oftentimes it is that training plus more. Or maybe it's not just pushing out an e-learning that someone can sit and take and click through. It is more of, no, you know what, we need to really either bring them in for an IoT where we can do some more scenario-based exercises, or do we need to provide something that's more of an OJT where they can learn things as they're actually
doing it.
And so there's multiple things that we're learning now by really getting out there and seeing what's happening. Because oftentimes as we sit in the office behind the closed door and we come up with all these great ideas, oftentimes those things may not work, right? But just because of we have people standing at a kiosk on their 15-minute break trying to take a training, but they don't have access to headphones, right? So they can't even, everything is in audio, so they can't hear it. So they're reading the closed captioning. They're really just trying to get through to the end. Where would that training have been more effective if done or delivered in a different way, right? Yeah. And so those things are where we're starting to learn more, is really starting to listen to our frontline team members and understanding the situations that they're in and what's going to serve the best purpose for them is going to be the most important thing that we've been doing. And that I would have told myself 5 years ago, right? We would have not been able to. We were churning for a while and pushing out all kinds of things, and like, why is this not working? But it wasn't working because we weren't listening.
Yeah, I've always heard the complaint, I want to do all these great things, but I'm told what to do. My company's reacting. I remember the post-COVID scramble, to bring in employees back and to hire more employees. And we have to be that way. We're a service organization. But we have a superpower, and that superpower is that advice that you would have given yourself, that our power is that we are close to the learner. We are close to the employee. We can be their voice, and through their voice, we gain influence and then are able to innovate and say, hold on, corporate, yes, this is critical, but if you want to do it, this is what we're hearing from the learners. So I wish all of our listeners to take that to heart And I really want to thank Dana Durham for spending some time with us and doing the great work she does at Delta. Yay,
Thank you
Delta.
so much. Yes, we look forward to the partnership across the board, not
Yeah.
just with you all, but anyone that wants to collaborate when it comes to learning and training strategies and how we continue to keep our companies at the forefront of innovation. We're always here for great conversation around that.
Excellent. So with that, I'll wish you a thank you and all of our listeners, and we'll see you in the next podcast.
Thank you for joining the Learner Experience Evolution. All episodes will be posted on the Alencom website, or you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Please reach out to info@alencom.com with any requests or questions.